On today's show, we learn about the Peculiar of Plymouth, Keegan Kreations, why the good old days weren't, hear original poetry pop up in our community, and talk about upcoming things to do in our area. We're glad you're here. Let's get started. Discover who you are and go with it. That's the overarching message of our next story and the work of creator, author, and Plymouth resident Vanessa Moore. Here's The Peculiar of Plymouth on the local scene.
My name is Vanessa Moore. My company is Moore Media, and I wrote a book called The Peculiar of Plymouth that details the life of this little smudgy, peculiar character who goes around Plymouth, tries to stay hidden from people because he's very shy, but he's also trying to discover who he is and what his life is all about. It started out as just a little fluffy story. I mean, honestly, it sounds pretty cliche, but it really did come to me in a dream. And I woke up, it was a cold January morning, and I woke up with this in my head and just sat down in front of the fireplace, and it pretty much wrote itself. I really like Edward Gorey type stories, and it kind of has that like feel to it. The way I made these drawings was really simple. Basically, I would take a photograph, bring it into Photoshop, and then trace over it and add colors and smear textures and different layers of texturing and to get different effects. So most of them started with some kind of photograph, like the Brewster Gardens Bridge here started with a photograph, Plymouth Rock started with a photograph, and then I just continually added layers on top of it until I deleted the underneath photograph, and then I had my drawing. But after I wrote it, I realized that it's got a lot of subtext to it that we all deal with, especially teens who are not sure of who they are and how they fit in with their friends and their school and what it's like to just discover your own identity. So basically we follow this little guy around. He's not sure where he fits in, but he comes to terms with learning his identity and who he is. And by the end of it, we discover that even though he's the scary thing in the corner, he's okay with that. Like that's who he is, and he goes with it and he embraces it. So the whole moral, it really does have a moral to not be afraid to be different and just discover who you are and go with it. Don't try to hide it. It's just a fun mascot for Plymouth. I mean, I think a few people that I've talked to are kind of, we've had Gobbles the turkey for a while, but I think it's time for maybe something a little bit new and updated. I just love writing about Plymouth. I mean, we did the Plymouth cookbook before. Anything that I can keep at a local level, I really try, because I am really trying to immerse myself in the local creative market. I mean, that's why I work with the Plymouth Bay Cultural District, and any creative people in Plymouth that I have met in the past 10 years are people I like to keep close to me, because we ended up having so much in common and we help each other in our careers, and anything that I can keep within Plymouth, I really strive to. Plus, I thought it would be fun for tourists, even though they don't know all the places in the book. If you came to Plymouth and went to Plymouth Rock and then you're like, oh, this is so cute, it's Plymouth Rock. Right now, the Peculiars and the book are for sale at Whimsical Wishes in Village Landing Marketplace. They are really supportive of local artists there, and I'm really happy to have it in there. I love that store. And it's also for sale at Titcomb's Bookshop in Sandwich. But I'm going to be shopping it around, and hopefully it'll get into more places here. And the Peculiar of Plymouth might just be the beginning. Could be a whole series. We could do the Horror of Harwich, or anything coming up. Maybe you can have little cousins all around the Cape. So expect to see them popping up in bookstores here and there. I've made tons of these that I sell with the books, and most of them have a different tag on the bottom with a unique message about being yourself and being true to yourself and being seen and just embracing your differences. Don't be afraid to be yourself in public or with your friends or with your family or at school. Everybody needs to be comfortable with who they are, I think. And especially in this time where divisiveness is so rampant, I think it's important for us to embrace our differences instead of hide them.
Their tagline is a labor of love, and anyone experiencing the delectable offerings of Keegan Kreations in Plymouth and Kingston would agree that they put the love into the labor of fine desserts. Here's the story.
So I came to the United States when I was 16 years old. My very first job actually at Blueberry Muffin at Kingston. There used to be a Chinese restaurant called Hunan Gourmet Restaurant. I was bussing table there and I hardly speak English. And I remember it was very scary because it's my first time come to the United States. It's learning the culture, learning the languages and learning everything myself. So I found it very challenging, and it's also very fun as well. I kind of tell myself that I think I want to live here for the rest of my life. I have a really interesting background because I never baked since I'm a kid. I don't have a story like, like people say they bake with the grandma or the mom loved to bake, things like that. Because my family are really healthy. They never allowed me to eat dessert. So I don't know what dessert is until I came to the United States. And I remember the first time I had dessert when I was at New York City, and there was a creme brulee. Then I eat it and I thought, this dessert is amazing, because I thought, how do this dessert they're able to make them is caramelized sugar on the top and it's so silky and soft in the middle. So I went home and I tried to experiment myself to see how can I make the dessert. I went to a fellowship friends gathering. So I thought, okay, that's the only thing I know how to make is creme brulee. So I bring it to the party, and then everyone was raised about that dessert. Everyone come to me and goes like, are you a pastry chef? Like, your creme brulee is amazing. Do you know how to make this? Where do you work? And I say, I don't know how to make brownies, nothing. I only know how to make creme brulee. That's the only thing I know how to make. They was like, maybe you should consider to become a pastry chef. And I say, oh no. I was like, no, I don't want to work in the kitchen. I don't see myself working in the kitchen. Then they were like, but your creme brulee is really good. And I thought, maybe you're just being nice to me. Then I just, but that thing stayed in my mind for a very long time. So my friend and I went to Johnson & Wales and took a tour. And then I get a chance to get into the Johnson & Wales and learn how to bake. And I remember my first class, it was a cake class, and it was a long day and it's tiring. But then when I go home, before I went to bed, and I remember, and I still remember I have a smile on my face, and I say, hey, I really enjoy my day, and I think I want to do this for the rest of my life. I work in a few different hotels until my last job that I worked was Lenox, Massachusetts in Berkshire, named Wheatley Hotel. And that's where I met my wife. The first time we went out for a date, then I shared with her my dream is to open my own bakery and cafe. And I asked her, do you have a dream? And she said, I don't really have a dream, but your dream is my dream. And it's really sweet and it's really nice of her to say that to me. And she is I want to say she's probably my biggest fans of all of the, support. She always encouraged me and she always wanted me to do good. And I remember she told me then how do we get there, right? In the meantime, she and I was really brave because we quit our full-time jobs, because if we don't do it all at once, it's very hard for us to do full-time and then look for business, right? And then we start going to farmers market. And then we both thinking about, so what should we bring to the farmers market? Because should we sell cupcakes, or should we sell banana bread, or should we sell croissant, or what should we sell? Because we really don't know. And then when we arrived, and Yiling looked at me, she's like, but we don't have a cash box though. And we don't have cash. What about if people buy something? We don't have change, right? What are we gonna do? And then when I went to the bank, I put in my ATM card and I saw I only have $20 cash in my saving account. Then I'm like, oh no, I don't know what to do because I can't take any cash out. But then in the same time, I prayed, God, what about you can turn this $20 into $200 for me today? and I say that prayer because I was like, I don't know what to do because I really give it all in because this is my one bet. And then we go back and I didn't tell my wife about that because I don't want her to worry, and I just start selling things. And the first customer come in, give us $5, no change. And second person, $10, no change. Until the end of the day, we made $200. We don't have to make change at all. Then I think within 25 minutes, we sold out all the croissant. And we still have cupcakes and banana bread left. Then obviously at the end of the day, we're like, I guess we're making croissant. I guess we should make that as our specialties. The second week, we go back to the farmers market. And then all the customers come in, they are straight to our table. They're like, I want your croissant, do you have them today? We can already see regular customer return and buy our croissant. We spent 2 years to go to farmers market for 5 different farmers market in a week. And only my wife and I, we do dishes, we load all the croissant to the car, we drive to like from Lexington to Cambridge to Braintree to Kingston, until one day we went to Kingston Farmers Market and someone tell me like, have you ever considered to open your bakery in Plymouth? Cause I'm like, Plymouth? I actually never been to Plymouth. I've been to United States for almost 27 years. I actually never been to Plymouth for once. And then immediately, Elaine and I fall in love with that town. I can see she's like jumping and singing in the same time. Then I found peace in my heart as well. Then when we go home, I start searching for, is there any bakery or any shop that is available in Plymouth? And we found one. And when we walk inside, Elaine and I were like, oh, we should put espresso machine here. We should put table here. We should do this. And so fast that she and I would just look at each other and say, oh, like, I feel like you already think that this is gonna be your shop, the way you tell me, the way I talk to her. Like, feel like both of us just already know this is gonna be our shop. But then I remember I only have $9,000 in my savings. We reach out to a company called Mainvest. They help you to raise capital from a different investor, and then we pay them back with interest that they made. And I think in 2 months, our goal is to raise $100,000 to build this storefront in Plymouth. And then in 2 months, we raised $96,000 from 100 different investors. And it's just amazing how we see all these people who support us, help us to make that dream come true. 3 years ago, the COVID finally over. I mean, the worldwide, right? My wife and I finally able to travel to China to visit her parents. Her mom just seeing her is like, you lost a lot of weight. And what did you do in the United States? You must be really tired. You can't work like that all the time. I know you love your business. Let's go for a physical checkup, see how's everything with you. And the report came back, it's all kinds of problems. Her body is telling her that she's overworked. And I was like, oh no, like how am I supposed to tell them? Because like, that must be I did a bad job because I didn't really take good care of her. That's why she have all kinds of problems, right? We postponed our trip flying back to Boston because the doctor wanted her to stay there. Her mom also prefer her to get treatment in China because she can spend time with her. We announced it in social media, say we're gonna postpone our trip for another 2 months or so. And to be honest, at that moment, I thought I'm gonna sell my business because I was like, I don't think it's worth it because we started from she telling me her dream is my dream, then now why end up she have to suffer her health because of my business, our business. So Yini, what do you think about we should sell our business because I feel like your health is more important to me? And she immediately tell me, she's like, she's a strong woman. She say, no. She's like, heck no. She's like, we're not selling our business. She's like, this is our baby. And we work so hard for that to build this brand. There's no way we're gonna sell this business. And then I have the thought that, what about I call my team in Boston and say, hey, you guys wanna try to run this shop with me? And surprisingly, they all like really happy. They all like, yes, we would love to do that. Absolutely. Please don't worry about us. We will make that happen, and please stay in China as long as you need. So make sure Yiling is fine. So we started for weekends, and I tell them what you need to do, and very soon they're used to it. It gives me a different idea of running my business. maybe I should turn this business in a different way. Like I shouldn't think about I need to be there all the time or I need to be like control everything all the time, right? Because I need to start learning to let go a little trust and teach them and guide them. I want to open a second store because of the whole experience in China, and all the team are doing really well. And I can see that small little store, all the team members are running out of space for them to grow. Now having 2 locations, I want to say from full-time to part-time, we have 27 employees now. I have half of my employees that they are teenager, right? Every morning I see the parents drop them off at the front and then they wave me. And I think that wave to me is like telling me that I'm dropping off my baby to you. And to me, it's like they trust me to train them, put them in a safety place. Last year, we just add on health insurance benefit for our staff. In the future, very soon, that my staff will have 401k retirement plan. Like, I always feel that I have a responsibility for the next generation. And then again, like the community, especially after we open this shop, that all the South Shore community come to us and tell me they appreciate we open a cafe here. I think this is probably one of my favorite questions today, because I always think that I have so much to learn, and I always think that I'm not done enough as a business owner to my team. I can't think this business just for me anymore, because it's like, if I do well, that means they do well. That's why that make me have a good night's sleep.
Pembroke Celebrates is an annual party dedicated to and presented by the people who make the town a fantastic place to live, the residents. The largest event of the year, the entire town is invited down to the Pembroke High School athletic fields on Saturday, September 14th at 5 p.m. There will be lots of family-friendly activities leading up to the fireworks, including live music, local vendors, a moon bounce, and the chance to test your endurance skills at the Army National Guard 100-foot inflatable obstacle course. Bring your own picnic for tailgating, or check out the variety of delicious food and dessert trucks that will be rolling up to the event. As the sun goes down, grab your spot on the practice fields for the Fireworks Spectacular, which will begin approximately at 8 p.m. and last about half an hour. Pembroke Celebrates is free to attend. Pembroke High School athletic fields are at 80 Learning Lane in Pembroke. Next up is poet John Holgerson in a performance of his original work from the 2nd Annual Plymouth Poetry Festival, presented by America's Hometown Laureates.
Good afternoon. My name is John Holgerson. I have 3 poems to read this afternoon. The first is from my book, Convictions of the Heart. Before I read it, I just want to commend Jennifer Harris and all of her colleagues with the Hometown Poet Laureates for putting this on once again. Last year's festival, for those of you who attended it in some form, was wonderful. I am anticipating that this year will be even better. The first poem I want to read is Tanka Triptych. A tanka is a form of classical Japanese poetry. Each tanka is made up of 31 syllables spread out over 5 lines, 5-7, 5-7, and 7. I put 3 of them together to build a triptych simply because I'd written them at different times in my life, and I put them together because they share a similar theme. The absence of you, a shawl across my shoulders, drawn tighter by the stillness of trees, the silence of birds. Watching the moon float amid cruising charcoal clouds, an ashen buoy on an onyx ocean, I thought of you tonight. The old dog lies down, headstone shade blankets him. He waits as before, head on the ground, dreaming, in smell of earth, scent of home. The second poem I wrote a couple of months ago. I had read a poem called If There Were No Paintings by Leonard Cohen, he wrote the poem and read it at his first showing of his paintings at an art gallery somewhere in Canada. I forget exactly where. So having read If There Were No Paintings, I thought I would write a poem about if there were no poems. And as Paul said at the beginning this afternoon, about the audience appears to be mostly poets, well, the poem is addressed to poets. If there were no poems, after If There Were No Paintings by Leonard Cohen. If there were no poems in the world, maybe then would mine be important. Since this isn't the case, let us not hurry to write just any line. Let us first prove ourselves worthy of the title poet. We have the time to find beauty in every scene and record it so it never erodes or fades away. Look around you. Choose to see what you chose not to see before. It could be a dog walking with its owner on a familiar crow-lined road for the very last time, or a man watching the demolition of a building where he once both lived and worked, or a posthumous portrait of the self-imposed quirks of a red-headed mother. It may be a usual muse, like the pretty woman walking down the street who smiles without warning or expectation at the old man with kind eyes peeking out at her beneath the brim of his well-worn brown cap. The editor of a literary journal might call such works poems. I call them admissible evidence required to render a final verdict. This last poem I wrote a couple of months ago. There's a Greek island called Hydra, and I think the only thing you really need to know about that island for the purposes of this poem is that it has no cars. There are no motorized vehicles of any kind on the island. You can ride a bicycle, but you have to leave it outside the limits of the municipality. There's a main town where the main harbor is, and there's 5 other villages scattered around the circumference of the island. So you get around by foot or by donkey. And that's probably all you really need for the purpose. I will point out there are 2 ambulances for the local hospital. They added a 2nd ambulance this past year. And there is a large red Toyota pickup truck with all the fire department apparatus in the bed. So other than those motorized vehicles, there aren't any. This is called the Old Men of Hydra. The old men of Hydra sit on a cool marble curb along the cobblestone street near the statue of the revolutionary Andrei Miaoulis, discussing the island's problems and how they would solve them if in charge. Some wear overalls stained with whitewash and putty from the lighter work they do now. The clothes of others smell of mullet and sea bass caught early in the day and then sold to impatient tavernas. They all watch and laugh at the braying donkeys tethered along the harbor front a few yards away, waiting for the giddy riders sailing on the hourly ferries and hydrofoils from Poros, Spetsi, and Athens. The children will want 20-euro rides around the town, while their parents and the tourists will need the donkeys to carry their luggage to the homes and hotels, some high up the mountainside, towering above the town and its horseshoe harbor. The old men remember their own long-dead donkeys hauling the first refrigerators and washing machines up the uneven stone staircases and twisting concrete streets to the storied captain's mansions, once dying from time's decay and man's crumbling neglect. These wizened, weather-beaten elders restored them with their hard, calloused, nimble fingers and bleeding palms that left scars running along and through their crooked, leathered lifelines. They recall how they put up the first telephone poles in the 1960s, connected the wires that small brown sparrows would sit on, and how one Canadian poet wrote a song about it. They live in small, whitewashed houses with roofs of reddish-orange tile and large blue, red, or purple shutters far behind the town and its bustling port. They are venerated by their children and grandchildren, for whom they built and rebuilt the island decade after decade with strength, sweat, and suffering. They are the unofficial mayors of their neighborhoods, where they know everyone and govern with a father's frail firmness and a grandfather's abiding generosity. Thank you.
For more about America's Hometown Laureates and poetry events in our area, visit hometownlaureates.com. Kids aged 11 to 18 who love to craft and create with a brush and palette will love Teen Paint Night at the Kingston Public Library. This drop-in monthly event happens next on September 4th from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. Let your imagination run free on up to 2 canvases provided by the library, or bring something of your own to paint on, a piece of wood, canvas, or a small object in need of a little color. The sky's the limit. The goal is to hang out and have fun. Here's the second installment of Pop-Up at Plymouth Pride with Michaela Clark and the Local Scene Street Team.
You guys would definitely know what it means to be a good ally and the ways to be a good ally. Could you speak on that?
Yes, I'm one myself. I'm gay, but I found this to be a benefit to my parents when I came out years ago. And so I got involved with this chapter 10 years ago to be an ally, to help other parents who walk through the room and need support. Sometimes they're in tears, sometimes they just found out about their child coming out. So I really empathized with that and wanted to become an ally. My colleague Jim is straight, and he comes because he's an ally. And PFLAG's all about being an ally. In fact, one of their handouts is a guide to being a straight ally. Actually, it can be any kind of ally, not just a straight one, but people need support. And I think it's important to speak out and help your friends and your family, and it really goes a long way. People don't forget it.
Ways to be a good ally is just showing up, not just like during Pride Month and at events, but to disrupt things as you see them in real life. If you hear someone make a joke or a comment or intentionally misgender someone, stuff like that. I think it's important to be the voice in the moment, marking that moment, and just really, letting people know that it's important to people, it's important to everybody, and it's just what you should do. Casey, what are some ways to be a good ally? To be a good ally means to support, if someone's coming out to you, no matter what they're coming out to you as, to respect people's pronouns, to respect people's preferred names, stuff like that. Just be respectful. Joe, why is it important to use proper pronouns? I think it's important to use proper pronouns because first of all, gender, I feel like it's a spectrum, and I don't think you could tell anybody how they identify better than they could tell you how they identify. You don't get to tell somebody else their identity, so I just think it's important to, if somebody wants to be called a certain pronoun, that you honor that. And there are so many languages that exist that don't even have gendered pronouns in general, so the arguments against it is like, well, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you?
Thank you. So anything you want, any 2 items?
We're here with Michael. Michael, what is your organization about?
I'm the manager from Plymouth Cope. We are a harm reduction program here in Plymouth. We are under the BAMSI umbrella, and we provide services for the community, free, confidential. We do a harm reduction approach to healthcare, and we provide everything from Narcan to HIV, Hep C, STI testing, free clothing, support, referrals.
Les, what's your organization about?
We are part of Greater Boston PFLAG. We are the South Shore Support Group out of Duxbury, and we meet once a month on the 4th Monday of the month from 7 to 9 in Duxbury.
Perfect. And what do you guys do?
It's a support group that overall PFLAG's been around for over 50 years, and it helps families and friends support their LGBTQ plus loved ones. So it is the premier support group for families who have LGBTQ folks in their family.
We're here with Jennifer Harris from America's Hometown Laureates, Inc. the organization that sponsored the Drag Queen Storytime. Could you tell us a little bit about that event?
Sure. We wanted to support the libraries attending here at the Plymouth Pride Festival, and the best way to do that is to support Drag Queen Storytime. Of course, we do poetry events throughout the town of Plymouth. We just appointed a new poet laureate, Miriam O'Neill, and so my job as the president is to go around and find places where we can bring more and more poetry.
Kathy, what is your organization about?
My organization is Bold Strokes Books. It's a publishing house in upstate New York. It's probably one of the largest LGBTQ publishing houses in the United States now. I remember when we had 12 authors, and now there's probably close to 300 of us. So I'm here. This is the perfect place to be. I have books for sale that I've written. All the local authors try to attend Prides, every way they can.
So we're here with Ronnie. Ronnie, what's your business all about?
So I'm here today with Athena's Home Novelties, and specifically Athena's by Ronnie, so that's my portion of it. Today I'm showcasing our bath and body products. So all the products we have are vegan, Leaping Bunny certified, which means they're not tested on animals, and made in the USA.
Jill, can you tell us about your business? Yeah, it's Miss Fresh Organics, and I make all my own home and body care products. So it's just all stuff that I use. I'm a biology and engineering teacher, so I just, make all my own stuff, and it's like nice, healthy ingredients. I'm here with Charlotte. Charlotte, can you talk to us about what your business is about?
Absolutely. I am Charlotte. I'm the owner of the Makers Market, which is located in Braintree. We are a store of 30 artisans. Everything in my store is handmade. And the Makers Market came about as a place for handmade artisans to have a space to sell their wares and to be able to grow and promote their business.
We're here with Kay. Kay, what's your business about?
My name is Kay. I use they, them pronouns. I am an artist. I study at Oberlin College. I study studio art, and I'm here selling my art prints, but also doing 1-minute portrait drawing. So people sit down, I set my timer, and I do a quick portrait, which is what I'm going to do right now.
So Kay, how do you celebrate Pride every day?
I celebrate Pride every day through my friends, through the media I consume, through being kind, through trying to make the world a better place. I think that sounds pretty cheesy, but I try and celebrate Pride every day by asserting my pronouns as well. It can be hard, especially because you don't always, not everyone always says like, hello, my name is whatever, these are my pronouns, and especially for people who are genderqueer or outside the binary, it can be harder to address. So usually I try and assert mine as much as possible to make it easier for other people to assert theirs. But yeah, I celebrate Pride every day through the lovely people in my life who are also queer and who aren't, who are just supportive. But yeah, I'm happy to be here celebrating Pride today though.
Awesome, that's so sweet. Olivia, how do you celebrate Pride every day?
I celebrate day to day much more subtly. I'm very happy to be here where we can all be out and very proud about who we are. But I do think that my celebration is a lot more subtle. It's more of being a safe space for people around me, that if they do find that they need to talk to someone about something, they can always come to me. That's kind of how I celebrate naturally. That, and I mean, I've always, you know who we are. We always have pins. We've always got flags everywhere. But yeah.
I love that. I love that answer. What are you hoping to do today and have fun?
Just have fun.
Simple answers, I love it. Anything you're looking forward to in particular?
The pet contest.
There's a pet contest. What about you, Carl? You looking forward to it?
You guys last year.
Yeah.
Stiff competition.
The Plymouth Public Library invites you to an evening of stunning classical piano performed by renowned concert pianist Roman Rudnitsky on September 16th in the library's Phalo Room. A graduate of the Juilliard School in New York, Mr. Rudnitsky has toured over 100 countries and been a prize winner in 10 piano competitions, including the prestigious International Leventrit Competition in New York. He was piano and music faculty at Youngstown State University's Dana School of Music for 39 years and is now the professor emeritus in his retirement. The library is honored to be hosting this internationally esteemed musician. The concert will begin at 6:30 and end at 8 p.m. and is free to attend. Please register via the library's website. The human tendency to repaint our memories of days gone by into the rosiest version of themselves is the inspiration for our next piece, The Good Old Days Weren't. What's the story?
We have a music event that is sure to leave you out of breath. Breathe out slowly. An all-wind instrument orchestra that does air supply covers will be doing an online virtual event this upcoming Thursday via Zoom.
Another virtual event. Man, what's up with all these Zoom meetings? Remember when everything was face-to-face?
Right. In the good old days, you weren't in a room. You were in an actual room with, like, walls and people.
Exactly. In the good old days, everything was live and in front of us. You could practically smell the lead singer's breath.
That's what I'm saying, man. It was real. And also, when you went out, you didn't even have to lock up or anything. Everything was safe. People took care of each other back in the good old days.
Yeah.
First, we should figure out what is happening right now.
Yeah, guys, everything okay?
Nothing. We're good. We're good.
Don't worry about it.
What is the story behind our yearning for the good old days, especially when faced with adversity in the present? Were we safer? Did people actually take care of each other more than we do now? First, we should figure out when the good old days people refer to actually happened. The answer is, it changes. Research has shown that over the last century, when people yearn for an era that was simpler, safer, and better, they're imagining a time about 4 or 5 decades in the past. A survey conducted recently, in 2023, revealed that 58% of Americans believed the country was better off 50 years ago. Go back to a Gallup poll conducted in 1939, and back then, 62% of Americans thought people were better off during the horse and buggy era. So with this consistent pattern of yearning for the fluctuating era of the good old days in mind, let's boogie back 50 or so years and have a look at the 1970s and early 80s. Were people better off? Was it safer? The answer is no. In the 70s, violent crime was the highest it had ever been in the history of the United States. There was also the Vietnam War raging, which altogether took 58,000 American lives. And in the early part of the decade, it hung the constant threat of being drafted over the heads of men aged 18 to 26. Domestic terrorism in the form of protest bombing was a daily threat. The FBI recorded about 2,500 bombings total during this time, an average of 5 a day, with the deadliest year being 1981, when 11 people were killed. We won't even get into the lack of seatbelts, no laws against drunk driving, and iffy baby equipment. With all this going on, people in the 1970s yearned for the simpler times of the 1950s. Happy Days and Leave It to Beaver reruns were all the rage. Of course, the people that lived in the 1950s grappled with the threat of nuclear annihilation, racial tensions, the Korean War, and Red Scare paranoia. So they idolized the 1920s. But of course, in the 1920s, psychologist John Watson got everyone in a dither about the threat of the disappearance of the American family due to rising divorce rates. Prohibition birthed the rise of organized crime and the mafia. There was a revival of the domestic terrorist group, the Ku Klux Klan. The Victorian age was the good old days to our 1920s friends, a time that, in reality, had people suffering from neurasthenia, a new disease that caused anxiety, impotence, insomnia, headaches, and chronic diarrhea because of the unnatural, fast pace of life brought on by railroads and the telegraph. Are we beginning to see a pattern? The obvious question here is, why are we this way? A big part of it is our brains and thought evolution, the way we're wired. Let's visit our ancestors millions of years ago. The decisions they made carried weighty life or death situations on a daily basis. For example, if they assumed a sound behind them was just the wind rustling some brush and not a predator, it could very well have been the last thought they would ever have. To ensure survival, they always assumed predator. Simply put, assuming the worst will always save you. How our thoughts have evolved from this to the modern day manifests in our tendency to give bad news more attention. Another tendency many of us have when considering the present against the past is what psychologists term rosy retrospection. Rosy retrospection is a cognitive bias that causes us to remember or look at the past more fondly than the present. The good experiences of the past rise to the top of our memories and eclipse the bad. This happens because we survived the past dangers, so they take on less significance in our brain space over time. The current problems we face are ripe with uncertainty, so in the present, we tend to give the bad more weight than the good in our lives. Nostalgia and reminiscing about the past is not a bad thing. It's only when our longings twist our perception of the present and future in ways that are not based in truth and reality. Fear of the future endangers experimentation and innovation, and ultimately, progress. When the bicycle first rolled onto the scene, people feared the riding position would create a generation of hunchbacks. They also feared the saddle seat would make women infertile. Vaccinations, anesthetics, and electricity were all also met with fear and resistance. These are all things that we in the present can see have made our society a better place. And let's go back to the sentiment that often follows the words, "back in the good old days." The belief that people used to take care of each other, but today, not so much. Often we point to a past that shows generations of family members living together as proof that family bonds were stronger back then, that people took care of each other. But data shows that extended family households have never been the norm or the ideal in America. The reason extended family members tended to live with each other was because it was a necessity. During the Great Depression, poverty forced families to share housing, and accounts from people back then described it as stultifying and oppressive. During the war years in the 1940s, generations of family members shared a roof because of lean times and housing shortages. Experts at the time warned of the widespread marital crises that would arise due to generational conflicts between household couples. When prosperity returned in the early 1950s, people couldn't wait to move out on their own. Young couples established single-family homes, flocking to the suburbs at a historically high rate. They couldn't get away from the furrowed, judgmental scowls of their elders fast enough. So while we might reside greater distances away from our parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins, this does not mean the bonds keeping the American family together are eroding. In fact, now more than ever before, it's easier to keep in touch with family. And statistics show that we do. With over 90% of American households owning at least one smartphone, tablet, or computer, video telephony programs like FaceTime and Zoom put us all face-to-face with our loved ones at the mere swipe of a finger. Social media platforms such as Facebook and Instagram keep us up to date on what everyone, from siblings to second cousins twice removed, are doing on a daily basis. And we like this? And 63% of Americans say they use group chats to stay in touch with family regularly. So even though we may not live as close to our families as in the past, we are very much involved in their lives. The fact is, even though the ways in which we take care of each other may look different than it did in the past, we still do have each other's backs when it comes down to it. In this way, American behavior has remained consistent. We have an excellent record of jumping in and helping each other in tough times throughout history. We saw this during the Civil War, when thousands of women served as nurses and volunteers to treat wounded soldiers on both sides. We saw it when a devastating flood hit Johnston, Pennsylvania in 1889, and Americans from all over the country donated, and kept donating for months and months. All total, an estimated 17 million pounds of food and necessities. And in the current day, just look at some statistics around crowdfunding and social media platform fundraising. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the CDC Foundation, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention's charitable division, launched Crush COVID-19, a crowdfunding campaign to help raise money for health equity, frontline worker support, and health protection marketing. Through the kindness of the crowd, the campaign raised over $50 million. Another example is #GivingTuesday, a social media fundraising campaign created as a charitable happening that follows Black Friday and Cyber Monday. In 2023, 34 million Americans participated and donated over $3.1 billion. To conclude, it is a very natural practice to sometimes pine for the past, but it's also important to keep in mind that the good old days is a relative term. What might have been good for some people was undoubtedly terrible for others. Every era in human history has faced or will face challenges that are threatening, unjust, and tragic. At the same time, we also experience happenings that are inspiring, rewarding, and life-affirming. This is the shared human experience. Thank you for joining us on The Local Scene. We hope you enjoy the moment you have in front of you and embrace today as being one of the good old days.
The Berry Pickers by Amanda Peters is the Pembroke Public Library's September Book Club reading choice. Praised as one of the best books of 2023 by The New Yorker, the novel begins in the 1960s during a Micmac family's annual trip to Maine to pick blueberries and the subsequent disappearance of 4-year-old Ruthie. The story then follows dual narratives, one of Joe, the girl's 6-year-old brother who was the last person to see her before she disappeared, and the second of a young girl named Norma who is haunted by recurring dreams, leading her to intuitively seek out the past she suspects her family is hiding. The book club will meet on Tuesday, September 3rd from 6:30 to 7:30 in the Pembroke Public Library meeting room for what is certain to be an engaging discussion. New members are always welcome. To request a copy of the book or for more information, please call 781-293-6771. Here's Tiff Phillips and the Local Scene Street Team in the last installment of Pop-Up at the Plymouth Farmers Market.
I'm with Caroline and Steve from Whale Dolphin Conservation. Thank you so much for chatting with us today. For those who don't know, can you talk a little bit about the organization and your mission?
Yeah, so Whale and Dolphin Conservation is the leading global charity dedicated to the conservation of whales and dolphins. We're a global organization, but our North American office is here in Plymouth. And our mission is a world where every whale and dolphin is safe and free. I work with our Marine Animal Rescue and Response team, so we're here at the Farmers Market to get the word out about our hotline number and just spread the word about the work that we do.
Steve, you are a marine biology professor. How did you get involved in that topic?
Well, when I was in college, I knew right away I wanted to become a marine biologist. So I wanted to get specifically into marine ecology. And when I got out of college, my very first job was working in aquaculture. But I've also worked with down at the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute with NOAA, been on cruises out to like George's Banks and so forth. And while I was teaching, I also helped do whale watches on the Captain John out of Plymouth. And it's just that I just love to get involved with anything to do with the ocean. And I volunteered to work with this woman and inform the public about how the ocean supports life out there, but more specifically, how it's getting more and more endangered with all the things that are going on. So my main role, I believe, is just to inform people about what's happening out there and, if possible, can we make things better?
What can we do to make things better for ocean wildlife?
First of all, what I say and what's realistic are not quite together, but get rid of plastic. Get rid of all these plastic cups, drinks, et cetera, et cetera. There's some research, by the way, like a 6-pack of beer, all the cans and bottles, they're working with making the cans out of carbohydrates.
Wow.
So that once they're discarded, like someone throws it on the beach or wherever the case may be, they will naturally break down through weathering and erosion in the environment.
That's
Now they're working on it, but something is biodegradable. That's the main word I want to use. Biodegradable, and it will disappear. Some of this plastic will stay for like thousands of years sometimes. So.
Even if it's recycled?
Well, I'm talking primarily about people just dumping the trash and so forth, because it gets into the ocean. The whales ingest it. I've seen sea turtles with six-pack rings around their neck, and they actually died because as they're growing, they get tighter and tighter with the ring, and then they die.
I'm with Miss Emma from the Eat Local South Coast Challenge. Can you tell me a little bit about the organization?
Yeah, so we're sponsoring this program starting June 24th through the end of July to connect local people to local vendors and to kind of challenge you to eat within a 200-mile radius of the South Coast of Massachusetts. So we're connecting people to more resources, tips to eat local, recipes, ingredients, volunteer opportunities, all kinds of things.
So why is it important to eat local and shop local?
It's better for the health of you because food is more nutritionally dense when it comes from less of a distance. It's better for the planet because of the carbon footprint of transportation. And it's also better for our community, for our economy, supporting the people that are our neighbors. So, yeah.
It was wonderful meeting you. Thank you for joining us today.
Nice to meet you as well. Thank you.
I'm with Allison from WIC. Allison, can you tell me a little bit about the WIC Nutrition Program?
Sure. The WIC Nutrition Program, we're a federally funded program. We help supply nutritious, healthy, fresh food to low-income families and people that are on mass health. And we also offer farmers market coupons during the summer, and they are $30 value towards fresh fruits and veggies. You can buy them here at the farmers market.
Why is it important to have farmers market be accessible to lower income families?
Buying food should be the same for everybody. There shouldn't be any stigma attached to it. Everyone should be able to afford healthy food that's nutritious to their families, just the same as everybody else.
Musical band, the Catnip Junkies, are fixing to raise our joy levels with lively, upbeat, colorful sounds of New Orleans jazz, swing, and brass band music. On Wednesday, September 11th at 6:30 p.m., the Phalo Room at the Plymouth Public Library will be bursting at the seams with the happiest, tappiest, brassiest band you will ever hear, playing iconic New Orleans standards alongside other familiar tunes alchemized into the energized musical sounds of the French Quarter. This event is free to attend. Visit the library's website at plymouthpubliclibrary.org to register. It's a worldwide musical sensation you may just lose your head over. The students of Plymouth North Vocal Music present Six the Musical, Teen Edition, on September 13th and 14th at Plymouth North High School Performing Arts Center. Completely produced and directed by students, Six is all of the wives of Henry VIII stepping up to the mic and belting out each of their harrowing stories, culminating in a group perspective power remix spun through a feminist lens and celebration of 21st century girl power. Tickets are only $8 each, and your purchase will help the Plymouth North Vocal Music students get ahead, with all proceeds going toward their spring trip to Orlando, Florida, to compete at the National A Cappella and Choral Convention. Showtime for both nights is 7 p.m., and the running time is 75 minutes long. Purchase your tickets online at PNHS-Sings. The Plymouth North High School Performing Arts Center is at 41 Obery Street in Plymouth. Guarding our beautiful coastlines has a storied history, and if you're interested, the Plymouth Public Library invites you to a seafaring historical lecture by author Rebecca Locklear on September 14th at 1 p.m. Shipwrecks and Search and Rescue, the U.S. Life-Saving Service will detail the predecessor of today's Coast Guard, and this presentation will include tales of heroic rescues made by the pioneering sailors who worked out of remote stations up and down the coast, historical photos, and colorful narratives her great-grandfather told of his experiences working for the U.S. Life-Saving Service. Rebecca Locklear is the author of Exploring the U.S. Life-Saving Service, 1878 to 1915, and The Surfman's Daughter. She also writes educational materials and is a contributor to the Wreck and Rescue Journal. Registration is required, so be sure to navigate to the library's website and secure your spot. And that, my friends, wraps this episode of What's Good and Good to Know in our area. We are grateful for your attention and thank you for watching. And we thank our supporters, Tiny & Sons, Quintal Brothers, and Squinny's Pizza for supporting our mission of community in action through media. We'll see you on the local scene. For more of what's good and good to know on the South Shore of Massachusetts, hit the subscribe button, and thank you for watching.